Trustee Taylor?
Here.
Trustee Reese?
Here.
Trustee Jackson?
Here.
Trustee King?
Here.
Clerk Sanders here. Treasurer Kavanaugh? Here. Supervisor McCray?
Here. Quorum is present. Purpose of this study session is for the 2025-26 funding year and on what is coming out of 592 water sewer recommended budget. Director Plata.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good evening, Honorable Board of Trustees. For you this evening, we are discussing the proposed water and sewer fund budget proposal and all the supporting documents. And I passed out copies of everything. The only thing that was not in the board packet, only because it's really hard to put in the board packet, is this big document here, which those of you who've been on the board for years, this probably looks somewhat familiar, because I would go over this every year as part of this. The water budget is singularly the most complicated budget by far that we have in the township. And all of the activities of the recent years between the lead lines and the CSO basins and the sheer abundance of water main breaks and just regular maintenance and repairs just made it even all the more complex. And I really have to give a lot of kudos to Director Dennis and Superintendent Rowland and the rest of the team, because the fact that they are able to keep it all straight to me is really kind of amazing sometimes, because it is just incredible how many projects we have going on simultaneously right now in the water and sewer and CSO departments. This again, very thankful also to former Finance Director John Kuba. He loves working on this budget. This is the one budget a year that he comes in to work on and does all the rate development work with the team, and really can't imagine doing it without him. He's just such a huge help for this, and so very appreciative of that. So, where does that leave us? Perhaps one of the questions you may have is, why did we end up doing this budget in June when we do all the other budgets, in January, February, and March? And the reason we do it in June is because we get all of our water from the Great Lakes Water Authority, primarily GLEWA, right? And they set their new rates as of July 1st. So the first 3 months of our fiscal year are based on the old rates that have been in effect since last July, and then the final 9 months of our fiscal year are based on the new rates. And we don't usually get the rate documentation from them until sometime in late April, early May. Sometimes it's late May. For the Rouge Valley this year for the sewer, those were finalized less than 2 weeks ago to go into effect on July 1st. So that's really
Waiting for 2 years.
waiting for 2 years. I mean, right, the Rouge system, some years they don't even do a budget and we just have to guess what we think is going to happen. So this document looks familiar to all of you in the sense that all of our budgets look like this. This document is really the key to the whole puzzle. So everything that is used from an expense perspective is put into this document, and then the formulas that are in this document then in turn create the rates to ensure that we are charging the right amount of money to be able to cover all the projected expenses. So the two things really flow together. And if you really wanted to, you could take the time, but all of the numbers that are on this sheet are also on this sheet. So the two really marry together. Up here at the top, on the upper right-hand side of the big document, you'll see where it says 2026 assumptions. So these are the assumptions that we are using for what we think is going to happen over the next 12 months. And immediately to the left of that, you can see, I left on there what the assumptions were last year. So we are projecting that we are going to buy 1,530,000 units of water this year. That's actually a decrease from last year, which trends with what has happened for the last several years. Water usage as a whole has been going down. And I'm sure we all know that, well, A, simply because of the cost of water, but B, people just don't, as a general rule, they don't water their lawns the way they used to, like as a general overarching statement. So water usage has been trending down for quite some time. Water sold refers to then the number of billable units that we've billed back to residents and businesses as they've used it. And then the difference is the water loss factor. The water loss factor is water that's lost through a main break, could be through a fire and they had to run the fire hydrants, it could be a leak that's somewhere in the ground, any of those types of things. Generally speaking, if you can keep that number to right about where we're at, which is about 1% per month, so that's why the 12% over the course of the year, you're doing pretty good, especially for a system as old as ours. There are some systems out there that have a water loss, so it's kind of the inverse of this, right? So the water loss is we're losing 12% of our water over the course of the year. There are communities out there that are losing 20% or more of their water, and you have to pay for that. So you want that number to be as small as you can have it, right? The rates that we got from Rouge Valley reflect a 4.3% increase in what they're charging us. The rates from Gliwa for the sewer side of things actually reflect a decrease. And then the commodity rate from Gliwa, which is the usage rate, it went up by 6.3%, and the fixed rate from them went up by 5.2%. And you can see that both of those are significantly more than they were the year prior, where they were at 4.2 and 2.3 respectively. Okay, so what does that mean in terms of what happens in the overarching rate? Well, so those were the assumptions that we had. Then we had to go back through and figure out, well, what are all the projects and what's the staffing and all of those things look like that we have to do. We are in the situation now that, let me make sure we're into the right spot here. That's not what I'm looking for. I want to talk about this. I know what I'm looking for, I just don't know where it is on this sheet. See, this sheet confuses me too at times, right? So I can only imagine what it looks like for everybody else. Where do we have, where we're putting in the money? Oh, it's up here, I'm sorry, it's up towards the top. So, in this chunk, so again, I'm still in the top half here where I have all the columns on the side here. The big thing that has really been driving, as we know, the cost for the last couple of years is about almost to the bottom of those lines, you see CSO Central Set Aside DS, which stands for debt service. So we currently have now into the rate $3 million a year for the debt service related to the central CSO basin. We are about 75% of the way there in terms of what we anticipate the final debt payment to be for that. We're anticipating that when everything is said and done and we've completed that construction and are into the repayment is going to be a little over $4 million a year. So that's a huge portion of this budget right there that is really driving the cost of this department is that debt service. One of the things that Mr. Kuba was able to identify, which is great for us, is that in the initial paperwork that we had drawn up with the state last fall regarding this loan, which is a loan from the the State Reserve Fund, the SRF, was that we did it where we weren't paying the interest or while we were still in construction, and that then the interest would be capitalized at the end for an additional $7 million. And I don't even remember us discussing that, but he caught it in the paperwork and pointed out that we don't need to do that. We can pay that $7 million as we go, which is great for us because that will reduce then that payment. So that payment may end up being less than $4 million, which would be great. But either way, at this point, we've got $3,050,000 worked into the rate. So we're getting there to get the full amount in there, but we're not all the way there yet. Last year, we had $2 million in the rate. The year before, we had $1 million. So we've been trying to step that up over time, right, so that we weren't smacking everybody with a 50% rate hike in 1 year. That's really kind of how that's worked. And we've been using the money in those intervening years to pay for all the design and engineering costs as we're moving forward on the project before the debt payments come in. So that's kind of been the thought process there. So all of that said and done, for next year, we have over here in the colored columns, we have an overarching increase between water, sewer, and CSO of 10.2%. So the water is a 10.5% increase. The sewer rate is actually going down by 1.6%. And the CSO rate, which is all driven by that debt line, is going up by 39%. So that's how that is all working. That is the part of your bill that changes based on your usage. So if you use more water, it's based off of these rates. You also have on your bill, of course, the base fee. The base fee is here in this section here. The base fee, which you could think of as being fixed costs, right? Those are costs that are the same for us, whether you use 1 unit of water or 100 units of water, right? The cost to pay for staff, the cost to mail you a bill, the cost for any of those types of things is the same. And so we call that the base fee. The base fee is going to go from $23.15 to $26.18. Which is a 13% increase there as well. So none of that sounds great, of course, right? So, but that is why we also then put together this 5-year look-back document so you can see at a glance what's been happening over the last few years. And while it is true that, this is not a great increase for us overall, right? When you look back over the last 5 years, the average increases have not been horrible by any means, right? They've been great. But given the rate of inflation and how quickly expenses have gone up, and considering how much additional debt we've had to take on related to the CSO basin, I think the fact that we've been able to average less than 6% a year is actually pretty impressive. And until you put this last year in there, if you looked at this document from last year, I think the average increase was under 4%. So we have done, and the team has done a remarkable job of really trying to keep those expenses down, but there's really nothing we can do about the CSO basin and all that that requires. Before I move on, are there any questions at this point?
Yes.
Treasurer Kavanaugh.
Yes, Treasurer Kavanaugh, you go ahead.
No, it's, I'm sorry to say that it's water rates and everything, it's ugly. It truly is. And just for the board members also is that LEWA is going to increase because they did request the increase to be more, and they didn't get it. But because they want more money for infrastructure as well, because things are, crumbling. Just know that that is on the horizon as well. My question would be is, have you scrutinized, because in years past, what we have said is that water has money, and I collect it. And it's tough because a lot of people don't like paying their water bill. With this increase, it's not going to be pretty, but have you scrutinized as far as, because before we had also taken away from water as far as other departments' bills. For example, what bill did we usually bill the water department? That would be, I don't recall right offhand, that we would charge the water department even though it could have been spread out amongst, let's say, the departments themselves. For instance, I found that we are charging MTA, which is $8,776.63 from the water admin. That would be a government bill, correct, across the board. The departments, all the departments could use MTA, correct?
They could, yes.
So are we looking at specific bills that we can spread across? Because, and I know that's a drop in the bucket, absolutely. But are we scrutinizing enough in order for the increase not to be so big? Because I know the CSO is going to hit us bad, $116 million, along with the debt service. But are we scrutinizing that much? Because I know that Tom, Mike, we've had the conversation about water loss, how much we're going to try to mitigate that as well. Because we're looking at every single drop that's going to be charged to us, and if we don't have to buy that much, that's even better. But are we scrutinizing even more?
I'm not aware that anyone has scrutinized down to the level of invoices that are less than 5 figures within this. you're right, small amounts do add up, but I mean, we're at what are we at? A $32 million budget. So unless we can get to the point where we're finding, I mean, even if we found $300,000, that would only be 1%. So even if something like the 8,000, you'd have to find, 40 of those in order to be able to affect the budget by 1%.
Is there stuff that we found? Yes, I will 100%. Tom likes to do that. Right, Superintendent Rowland? Yes, sir. Yes, sir, he does. And he lets me know. We can't pay this. So we've been doing that to correct past practices, I guess we can say. But,
Yes.
I've never seen an MTA bill before, so I'm not really sure how they could charge water, so I will say that. So, no, 100%.
It just so happens that I read through a warrant list of bills, and there it is.
But we do, I mean, there's been a lot of belt tightening, things that we have to, on this budget, stuff we had to buy. Big equipment that we've come already to the board on. Again, this is stuff that in regards to, these are capital improvements. It's not, higher or saving the money here. It is a lot of just capital, and that's what we're getting to right now in Rutherford Township. So, but yes, we do find things. We do try to correct them. I can tell you that.
Okay.
And I think that there may be some value.
People had eyes on it.
And I think, Treasurer Kavanaugh, if you see something like that and bring it up, we certainly can look at moving it. I don't think at this point, even if we do see those things, I wouldn't recommend changing the rate, primarily because we still got to put another $1 million into it anyway, right? So we're going to have to get to that point anyway. Maybe instead we'll have to put in 900,000 instead of $1 million, but just why go backwards and go forward, you're right?
Right.
But I think if you see those things, please feel free to flag them to me, because sometimes there are things like that go somewhere because that's where they always went, and not necessarily from is it really where it should be going today? That does happen. That's just the reality in a budget of this size.
Okay. No, and that was just my question, is if you are trying to identify, and absolutely, I was going to, but since we were reviewing the
Sure.
budget itself, I think it's essential that we do identify things, because I know John Kuba had said, there come a point where water is not going to be able to sustain all the expenses that we have put on it. So I know that some had been moved.
Some have
spread
been
out,
for sure,
absolutely.
yes.
But I just wanted to make sure you continue to do that, because that's what we're trying to do, is
And
tighten it up.
a lot of that was done, let's see, 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago now, when we started the process of doing a cost allocation every year. So there were a significant number of charges that were just simply charged to water and hadn't really been reviewed in a while, where now we do an actual cost allocation across all of the funds for all the central services that are provided. That was not done prior to my being the finance director,
Right.
and Mr. Kuba had told me that, that hadn't been done in decades. So it was a good practice for us to begin doing that, because that did take some charges out of the water
Yeah, I
and
think
sewer
one
fund.
was bank charges, I think.
It was,
Yeah.
right,
Okay.
right, because
So-
they didn't all belong there. They should
Right.
have been distributed, and now they are distributed.
Okay. No, and I just wanted to make sure that process would go forward, because it is essential, especially right now with all the money that we do have to spend with the CSO. So, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm good.
Other questions from the board?
To the chair.
Trustee Taylor?
Just a quick question for clarity and understanding regarding the CSO rates that obviously do have to go out to pay for the work that we're doing. Are those flat rates for every home, or do those also vary based on usage?
They vary based on usage.
They do. And does it vary based on line size as well, which is considered in the usage?
Well, so the yes and no, in the sense that the line size, in the sense that a larger line is going to use more water,
Okay.
but that's already caught in the usage, right? There is, I think what you're referring to is, last year we began the process of also charging a service line charge.
Yes.
So we changed the structure of the base fee to properly charge for the size of your line itself, because most homes have either a 3/4 or 5/8 inch line, to the point of, like 98.7% of our homes have either a 3/4 or a 5/8 inch line. But so the ones that have a larger line than that, and that's actually, I think that's on the back of this, yeah. If you, on the back, it's here kind of in the middle. You can see what's going on. So out of all of our customers, right, we did this based off of 20,082, over 19,500 of them have either a 5/8 or a 3/4. That's all the residential homes. And then you see the larger lines below that. And you can see that bi-monthly fee for the size of their line increases dramatically as you have a larger line, which reflects the fact that if we have to go in and do work on that line, it's more expensive for us to do work on an 8-inch line than it is a 3/4 inch line. And prior to last year, that fee was the same, and this was again a way for us to try to shift some of that burden off of the residents as all these other costs were coming into play.
As a variable cost.
As a variable cost, right.
So when we're looking at this cost analysis of 1 unit used before July 1st and after, is this just water usage and not include CSO and all the other?
No, it's everything. So if
Because
you
that
got,
doesn't
if you
look
got
too
it,
bad, like
right,
$5,
exactly.
what is this, monthly or bi-monthly?
This is bi-monthly.
So $5 bi-monthly for a unit is total, base fee, line, water, sewage, all of that.
Right, and most of our, I as a single person, my bill was generally 1 to 3 units, right? So, I know a lot, and sometimes in the summer, if I was being really, really aggressive watering, it might have been 5. Most people that I know who have really big families, they tend to be around that 10, especially in the summertime, right? So it's a $15 difference.
So all in all, considering the fact that we have multi-million-dollar CSO basins to build for an average family's bill to go up less than $10 bi-monthly is not horrible.
No, it's not.
Because we don't have a choice. The CSOs have to be paid for. So I was really expecting a lot worse when we started seeing the numbers of the cost to build these basins. So I'm glad to see that it's more of a soft punch rather than a hard punch in the face.
Right.
Still a punch.
It's still a punch, but
It's not a punch in the face.
exactly.
No,
Yeah,
Less impact.
right.
I'm going to be a punching bag is what's going to happen because I'm the one that's collecting the bills. So I understand. It doesn't seem like a lot. It's just a lot of work in order to collect this money is extremely hard. So you're making the job harder, even though I understand completely the numbers and, the setting aside for capital improvements, absolutely, because we have to get that done. We have to set it aside. It's just really hard.
So speaking of, before I go into anything about capital improvements or staffing, does anybody else have any questions on what we've covered so far?
To the chair,
Trustee Reese.
2 questions. One is, what is the average use per household? I know you said it varies. Is there like a clear number that's just averaging everybody to a 6-unit
Calculation.
Okay.
Did you say it about 5 units for a family roughly?
Yeah, 5 to 10. It's difficult to,
Quantify that.
yeah, because I can't simply take the water sold and divide it by the number
Yeah.
of because it includes all the businesses, right? So I'd have to calculate out subtracting all the commercial and industrial usage before and see what was left. So we could do that, we could calculate that, but I know it's somewhere between 5 and 10 units.
Okay. 2 other questions. One is, I know the treasurer mentioned Kaliwa, the rates are going to continue increasing. So do we foresee for having this rate increase this year? For the next, obviously, as CSO, we're easing that in. So we're looking at this again next year and the following year.
So, yeah, I mean, I think, and you can see a little bit here. So in the $3 million, right, for the Central Basin, right, you can see over in the orange column that $3 million represents $2.26 per unit. So that number is going to go up by another third, right? So next year, that's probably going to go to like $3.30 per unit. And then I think that number will pretty much be capped until we have to build the South CSO Basin. So so you kind of see, I think if it wasn't for the CSO, I think our other numbers would actually, we have been doing really, really good. And part of why our rates, the water side, is that we actually are recommending adding some additional staffing, which we haven't gotten to. So that has played a role here too, because it feeds into the costs.
So if we extracted that $2.90 out,
Yep.
we would see basically a per unit increase of, what is that, $3, 2 something?
You would see a per unit, if you took out the CSO column, if we didn't
No.
have any CSO costs,
Yep.
you would see that water would go up by 43 cents and sewer would go down by 9. So a net difference of, what is that, 34 cents.
Yeah, okay, that's just helpful to know. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I don't think so.
All right. So regarding staffing, we've had a lot of conversations about staffing. The department has been operating on the same size staff for a couple of decades, and the workload in that department by no means has been the same for the last couple of decades. I mean, we just went through a winter season. They had more water main breaks in 1 month than we typically have in an entire year. We don't have examples in the past where we had our staff being expected to do all the normal maintenance work, plus all the lead line investigation work, plus all the breaks, plus working on the I mean, like, it's just, we needed to increase the staff. So we do have built into this to add 2 positions to the department. We may end up only actually adding 1, at least temporarily, and seeing how that goes, and then add the other one. But the goal is to add, to bring back a position that hasn't been filled in a long time, which is a utility leader. And Dr. Dennis, do you want to talk all about that?
Yes, this is something that we've been discussing for the last few years. And it would basically still stay the same hierarchy we have from the superintendent to the foreman, and a utility leader would report to the foreman. And we would have, we propose to have 2 of them, one sort of a water sewer type thing where they would be able to be the go-to guys to in turn, be at the sites, be at the projects, be at all the different things that our staff has to do. We have it seems like monthly there's more and more things we have to do. If it's not reports, it's projects, it's improvements. Just Eagle keeps wrapping up, and they're making it much difficult for us every month. Tom is on Teams meetings all the time. This would also then free up our foreman to assist with a lot of this clerical type work, and not just the clerical, administrative type work, where Tom is doing reports nonstop because that's what Eagle wants. Eagle, it's online, it's reporting, it's the lead. And lead, in my presentation later, we'll see that they have reduced the parts per billion, and you're seeing more and more communities that will start having these action level exceedances. So that is partly, and we have a lot of programs that we want to start to keep moving forward with valve turning, hydrant flushing, the sweeping. I can just keep going on and on, new technologies that are out there from ArcGIS, and again, this is all my presentation here shortly, but it was something that has been, that we discussed internally, and then also discussed with the supervisor and with Director Bonerick. It is something that we feel is warranted, as we do need the assistance to keep moving us forward in the water and sewer departments.
To the chair.
Treasurer Kavanaugh.
Sorry. I have no question. Actually, it's just a statement. My staff and I, many a time, try to reach out to Tom, try to reach out to Sean, they're out in the field, Tom is inundated, and it's very difficult to get an answer for what we need because he's busy doing other stuff. And I know that when you mentioned that that would happen, and actually 2 utility, but currently we're going to get 1, but it is something that we absolutely need in order for us to get answers, in order to get things done, because we get bogged down that he's not there, try to call him. It's like running a hamster in the wheel. But anyway, so I do appreciate, and I wanted to let everybody know that it's something that is needed.
One thing I will say, that water and sewer have been very reactive for a very long time, and we need to start being proactive.
Yes.
And it's something that we can't allow this to control us. And that is what is occurring right now with not the improvements we have been making and programs and activities we have not been able to complete. And I feel as though this will be a way for us to start doing this, freeing up Sean to do different things, to assist Tom, our oversight administration of these programs. Eagle does not make it simple. Tom, you got an email from Wayne County on the way here, by the way. I meant to tell you, uncontrolled, discharging, with the rain. Tom has to report within 4 hours or we get a violation. It used to be, hey, if it happens at 2 a.m., no problem, you get it at 8, you turn it in. They have new people at Eagle, old school, that say, you gotta do 4 hours. So he has to have a report in if it's 2 a.m. by 6 a.m. and be alerted to do that, because there was uncontrolled discharge because we had too much rain at the CSO, and uncontrolled, discharge. And so it came in at 5:07. He has until 9:07 to turn it in, or else they give us a ding. And it's ridiculous that they give you 4 hours. Someone who needs to sleep a little bit, but so that's just part of the process that we go through, that Tom goes through to do all this. So.
And just FYI, you guys always stay later than even me.
Yeah, Director Jen, we have it's an ongoing joke between the two of
It
us
is.
because we reliably know that the other one is going to be still in the office.
Yes.
Called me about a car on Thursday night.
I know.
I think it was Thursday night
Yeah.
at 9:30, and I was just leaving the office. I go, yeah, I'm still here.
I go, who dropped this trailer in our parking lot?
Yep.
Anyway,
So
thank
that's-
And it was gone.
Thank you, you're right.
Yeah.
And that's really appreciative, and that's why we really are hoping that this will be, will help with that, is by creating these leader positions or bringing back that leader position. We've had conversations too about the pros and cons, maybe adding another foreman or trying to go that route, but they really feel that the utility leader route is the first way to really tackle this. On the capital side of things, a few years ago, we did a lot of work at updating the forecasting and the projections that we do for our capital expenditures outside of the CSO base and our regular capital expenditures like Vectors and, backhoes and all that type of equipment. And the set-asides that we've been doing on an annual basis for that, those have all remained flat. So, which is really good. So I feel like we have a really good handle on properly projecting our capital needs for that. So if it wasn't for the CSO basin right now, I think our budget would really be very flat.
Really would.
Yeah.
To the chair.
Mr. Jackson.
Adding a new person, one of the questions that I sent you earlier, Adam, was why salaries and wages were going up $156,000.
Yeah, and there's really two people in there, so that's really what's driving it. That and of course just regular raises. Going back to the other questions that you asked, Trustee Jackson, the first couple of questions that are on your list. So she asked me some questions for last year's budget, the budget that just ended, regarding the base fee. That's revenue for us. So the fact that they're over is a good thing because it means we brought in more money. And just so, and we budget our revenue conservatively and our expenses, right? You want to budget revenue low and expenses high, so it should come out on the positive side. When we calculate out for the base fee on here, we do it assuming 19,850. I don't want to say households, but households, users, right? Which could be a business or a household. But we know, for example, we really have closer to 20,100. but not everybody pays their bill every month. So we don't want to use that 20,000 number because then it doesn't give us enough buffer in case people don't pay when they should. And so often the base fees come in over the budget, which is a good thing for us.
Okay, good.
You asked me a couple of questions about the salaries and wages. It's all tied either to the two new people. And you asked about insurance, and that's medical insurance. So medical insurance costs went up significantly for this year from the regular budget. And when we budget for vacancies, of which we have several, we always assume that person is going to take the family plan because that's the most expensive.
That's
So the reality will probably be less than this because not everyone takes a family plan.
Okay, so it's a conservative estimate.
I think the only other question that's on here, which is really a Director Dennis question, is you asked me, that it's a typo about the contractual services, but you asked the question of what is flow data GIS reporting?
Right, that's costing $300,000.
Yes.
Yes, that, we are going to be doing, part of to save money, we are planning to doing a water flow data testing. We do that about every 5 years. That will actually show where we're having leaks in our system. Someone literally goes to all the hydrants in different areas and listens to see what's happening. We last did one in about 2019, 2020, Tom?
Yes, sir.
There you are, okay. You were over
He
here.
moved.
That's why, yeah.
He keeps
You're
moving.
like right in my bad area. And then, I'm sorry, it was a flow test and what was it?
That was it, the
Oh.
GIS flow testing, yeah.
But the ArcGIS is also something that we want to start using more with new technologies. It's actually on our phones. It's an app that we're using for field maps and valve turning and better upgrading of this, technology for us. And those are upgrades for us, for the program. We need more of it, I'll be
Was
honest.
that a typo, though?
We don't know for sure how much it's going to cost, so the line should have been budgeted for $330,000, not $230,000, but we don't actually know what it'll cost, so I'm okay with it.
Okay,
I think there'll be enough buffer elsewhere that it'll be fine.
okay.
I can always trust you, Trustee Jackson, you always find those for me.
So now you know I look.
I appreciate that, but I think that addresses all the questions you had.
Yep, it does. Thank you.
Any other questions for us?
Through the chair.
Treasurer Kavanaugh.
I have a statement.
Oh, boy.
Just so some of the new board members understand is that it is difficult to collect. I'm sorry you're going to get phone calls about people getting shut off. We collected in one shut off last year $900,000 because we keep driving and telling people they have to pay their bills. Also, the fact that my staff controls a lot of what they see in, let's say, high use. We see a home, just happenstance, that is using a lot of water. We send out a letter of high use in order to let them know there's a problem in the home. We can't go in and look at it, but we can let them know that something's abnormal. If it's a constant flow or if you're just using a lot of water, let's say at 3 in the morning. So my staff is trying very hard to make sure that we can mitigate some of those issues before it becomes a huge problem, especially with heating vacant homes. Make sure that they're heated because, in the winter or when it thaws out, they're going to have busted pipes. So again, we're doing everything we can also on our end to assist both Tom, Sean, Mike, and what have you. So just FYI. I think that's it for me.
Other questions from the board? Hearing none, good job, everybody.
Thanks for making it easy to understand.
Yes, indeed. So, no other business for the board. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.